The Democrats are on track to flip Arkansas's 70th House district in
Wow,
a
look at
special
that.
election tonight.
Look at that. I'm telling you, the
Mhm.
special election stuff, it is nothing if not impressive what the Democrats are doing in all of these special elections.
Even Adam Carlson now seems to be saying that there's only good news from Crockett out of the small counties around Dallas. That doesn't seem like a good sign when you have all those big cities and that's all you're winning in or getting what
Exactly.
you need in.
So
Um,
let's recap here where we are, okay? Because people just jumping into the live stream now. We've never done this before. Again, if by the way, just as an FYI, if you see people walking behind me, those are my children. So don't be afraid. I'm not. No one's coming to get me. Well, actually, they might, but
eh,
but I had a very interesting day today on Twitter. We can talk about that later at some point. But anyway, enough about that. So the results so far, I'm looking at the New York Times page, and it has North Carolina. First of all, we have a winner. Roy Cooper and Michael Whatley will be the nominees for Senate. That was expected. I think Cooper probably is a narrow favorite to pick up that seat over Whatley. Narrow favorite, I would say.
I might go even a little bit higher than that based on the environment that we expect,
Okay,
but he's a favorite. It's just
he's a
a
favorite.
question of how much of a favorite.
Fair enough. Now, of course, Texas, what everyone's interested in, and right now it looks like we've got. Well, this is pretty shocking. John Cornyn's up 44-39 with a third of the vote in.
But that's all
Tallarico,
early vote, I
that's all
think.
early vote. Thanks, Kelly. And Tallarico is up 52-47, but every indication seems to be that Tallarico is heavily favored to win.
Everybody that I've seen who is a data guy is looking at the numbers that we're getting and saying Jasmine Crockett's not hitting her numbers. Just to give you one example, MJ Hagar, who won handily in 2020 in the primary, got 58% of the vote in Travis County, which is Austin. And Tallarico is right now up 76-23. So he's doing very well, it seems like, with white suburban voters and with Latino voters in a bunch of different places. So things are looking pretty good if you're him.
I don't think this should come as a big surprise, actually. I mean, if you look at the dynamics of this race, oh my God. Isadora, oh my, it's actually the dog. The dog has actually interfered with the plug and has pulled my computer, yeah, out of the Baxter. Oh my God. Seriously?
Baxter wants some airtime, man.
Baxter wants some airtime. So, okay. So, what I was going to say was, I don't think this is a huge surprise because Tallarico was leading. Look, this is your way. Crockett just did not have a great campaign, right? She raised a lot of money, but she didn't have a ground game. Tallarico seemed to have a ground game. And I think there was a lot of reason to believe that Tallarico was just going to be able to get his vote out. Plus, she is heavily reliant on Black voters, while Tallarico has just the dog. Well, Tallarico has made significant, I think is a lot better with Hispanic voters. All right, can I get the plug, guys? I need the plug. I'm sorry, guys. This is the problem about going live with two children present. So, Lynn, I'll try to show you the dog later. Okay, it's a little bit of a challenge right now. So
I
I think
mean,
this is
Baxter has a mind of his own.
apparently. So sorry for this, everybody. It is an adventure here. No, but I think it was the case. Tallarico was, the polls were all over the place, but I really think every reason to believe Tallarico was favored to win, just because he had a better campaign, better interest, better though than I think a lot of us were expecting. This could be a double-digit victory.
Yeah, I mean, Jasmine Crockett's theory of the case was just crazy. The idea that, well, if we just bring out enough base voters, we're going to win a general election. That wasn't the most compelling argument to make to anybody who cares about winning. And look, we've harped on it from the beginning. She said some not nice things about Hispanic voters in a state where you have to win Hispanic voters. And it doesn't surprise me that she's struggling. And I gotta be honest, I'm not sure Jasmine Crockett really wanted it that much. Like, she just didn't see her campaign was a mess. She got in at the very last minute. I
Interesting.
I just wonder if she
I think
wanted
you're
it.
right. Yeah, I have the same feeling too that she didn't seem to have the fire in her belly for this race the way she got into it very late. I think she got convinced that by some poll results that she might have a chance of winning. So I think you may have a point there. By the way, I want to take a digression to say, boy, this is a big win for Kamala Harris. Because so Kamala
What is
Harris,
she
no,
doing?
listen, hear
Oh,
me
oh,
out,
oh,
hear me out, hear me out, hear
your
me out.
theory from the other day.
You know,
Okay.
my theory, yeah. Kamala Harris endorsed. Okay, that seriously, stop. Kamala Harris endorsed Jasmine Crockett last week, and everyone was like, "Why is she doing this?" And you know, my argument at the time was there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is, I mean, for Democrats, was that I suspected she was endorsing Crockett with the understanding that she probably was going to lose, but that she wanted to get credit for having endorsed black female candidate for Senate in Texas. That leads to the bad news for Democrats, which is that I think this really does suggest that Kamala Harris is running for president. So what I think she did here was she endorsed Crockett, again, shore up her support with black voters, but did really want Crockett to win because if Crockett wins, he'd probably lose to Paxton in November, and then it would be bad for Democrats. So I think this is a big win for Kamala Harris. I know it's counterintuitive, but I really do think this confirms my earlier view, my long-held view, that Kamala Harris fully intends to run for president in 2028.
I would say that she certainly wants to hold that option open. I'm not 100% that she's sure that she's running yet.
That's fair.
Um,
That's very fair. Yes.
I think that that's my one disagreement. I just think that she wants that option available to her, but I feel like she's not even gonna really, like, dig the advantage of being Kamala Harris is she can get in late in the primary. She doesn't have to get in next November or December. She can get in the
No, I don't
spring of
agree.
'27.
You got to get in early. You got to wipe out the opposition early. You got to give everyone, make sure everyone who thinks the challenging her is dissuaded from getting in the
Well,
race.
If she thinks that she can kinda, like, clear things a little bit for herself, then yes. If she thinks that she's just gonna be one of the candidates, she has such high name recognition that she doesn't it's not somebody who has to be shaking hands in Iowa in the cold in November. Um, but I'm still not sure she pulls the trigger. I'm
Look, I agree. I Can you vamp for a second, please, Brian?
Yes.
Just vamp for a second.
We got we're some of the most interesting races tonight are gonna be under the radar. Phil Berger, the longtime state senate president in North Carolina, looks like he's losing a primary currently. Um, we have Dan Crenshaw, Texas representative, who I would call a mainstream conservative Republican. There's nothing that would ever make him anything but a conservative Republican. He is also losing to someone even further right as of the moment. And the funny thing about what we may end up seeing tonight is tonight was a night that the left was kind of going to exert itself. That was the narrative that Valerie Foushee, Democratic representative from North Carolina, was going to lose, and that we were going to see the left assert itself. But it may be that we're right back to where we always were, which is the Democratic establishment holds and the Republican establishment collapses, same as it ever
I
was.
think that's a real possibility. By the way, I want to just say one thing. I want to digress for 1 second. We're going to get back to election night, but I just saw this clip with Graham Plattner, who said about U.S. China relations, I think our position toward China should be one of cooperation instead of opposition. I'm increasingly coming around to the view that this guy is an idiot. I mean, and I mean that sincerely. I really think he's an idiot. He says the dumbest shit of any politician I've seen in a long time. And he's like, he retweets anti-Semites, which I guess maybe in this stage is a good thing for the Democratic Party. Um, he went on some podcaster who was like an anti-Semite, and now he's saying we should be closer with China. Guy's an
Well,
idiot,
and
honestly.
the best part about the podcast thing is the charitable interpretation. He went on and said he like is a big fan of this podcaster. The charitable interpretation is he chased all his staff away with all the stuff he said. So he's
Yeah,
poorly staffed and he didn't know what show
he
he was
is.
going on and was BSing and was saying, "Oh, I'm a big fan," not knowing who he was saying he's a big fan of. I mean, I don't get the love affair with Graham Plattner from some. I really don't. I still think that when Janet Mills unloads on him fully as we get into the spring, that his popularity is going to drop. It just seems like there's a new story every day. I mean,
I
like,
agree.
can you
I agree.
imagine a debate? Can you imagine
No,
a debate where he's got to get up there and debate Mills, who's been in, governor for 8 years, been in politics for decades? I just can't imagine he can handle that, and let alone debating Susan Collins in the fall.
I agree.
I
I think
mean,
people. This election is not till June. I think there's going to be real questions. I'm not convinced he's going to win. Let's get back to Texas. I'm just struck by something very funny I saw on Twitter. Jonathan Martin said, "One of the shrewdest Texas Dems I know said a month
yep.
ago the Senate primary would hinge on if Tallarico could consolidate Hispanic support." Really, Jonathan? You needed some shrewd Texas Democrat to tell you that? Really? Like,
I
that was
mean,
kind of obvious for quite a while there, Johnny. Sorry, but absolutely.
and
Like, really, what the hell?
obvious to his campaign too. He's been working South Texas
No
hard,
shit.
like
No shit. Anyone paying attention to
it's
this race would be aware that this is what Tiger's been doing. This whole strategy is to win Hispanics. What
and
the hell?
frankly, it is it's he knows it's key to the fall too. He's got to do
Yes, of
really well with
course.
Hispanic voters. I mean, that this has been the theory of the case. I've said this before, but I was thinking about this afternoon. The Democratic savior, the next Democrat who can compete statewide in Texas. I count Ron Kirk, then we had Wendy Davis, then we had Beto, then we had MJ Hagar. They were all supposed to be different. They were all supposed to be the one. So like I'm not sure that I'm sold on anyone ever winning Texas until it actually happens. But
I agree.
to do that, you have to win the Hispanic vote clearly and decisively. You have to run up huge margin in the cities and the suburbs around them. And Tallarico, like he's got a professional operation. That was one of the problems. Crockett didn't run a professional campaign. She got outspent dramatically because she didn't put enough time into raising the money that she needed to raise. I don't. It's like I said. I kind of think that she figured, well, I'll give it a shot, and if I lose, the Jasmine Crockett show on the Pod Save America network is coming come January. You know right? Like that's what she thinks is going to happen. She's going to go make money in the media.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple things here that are interesting. So on the Hispanic thing, I really want to see what the numbers look like as far as turnout among Hispanic voters in in South Texas, how good they are for Tallarico, because that will give you some indication whether Tallarico can win. Um, I do. I think this is interesting. Lakshmi Jain says is in Tallarico did a war of D+6 in order to beat Paxton. Look, look at it this way. Look at it this way. Those races. This is one thing to think about. The only way Texas Democrats were going to win this race was if uh, it was Paxton versus Tallarico, and that's where we are. And this is set up exactly the way Democrats would have wanted. And to make it even better for them, there's no runoff for the Democrats. There'll be a runoff for the Republicans. They're going to spend a lot of money. John Cornyn probably against Paxton, and they're going to spend a lot of money attacking each other, with Cornyn attacking Paxton, loosening him up for the general election. Look, if you were betting, you would bet that Paxton wins this election. That's the bet you would make.
And
But I
you
will
know
say
what?
it'll be a lot closer than I think people thought it would be. And that right there is a big win for Democrats because the Republicans have spent a lot of money to protect this seat.
Well, the irony is they're going to spend $150 million or something like that to attack Ken Paxton between now and May, and then they're going to have to spend another $200 million to try to rehabilitate Ken Paxton after May. The exact same committees and people who are going to have to prop him up. One point that I got to at the end of a video from my subscribers this morning and didn't really flesh out, but I want to flesh out is yesterday. John Cornyn finally said that he would support Ken Paxton in a general election because the Democrats were both fit to represent California, not Texas. And I pointed this out, everything wrong about our politics is that. You want to know why we're starting to get crooks in office, why we're getting people of such a low caliber? It's because Ken Paxton is corrupt. Everybody knows he's corrupt. John Cornyn knows it and he hates him, but he's still going to endorse him because he's a Republican.
Of course.
And so long as that is our attitude, there's no incentive to put high quality candidates out there. There really isn't.
Yeah.
If you don't pay a price, the lesson I think that the best case for American politics is that Ken Paxton's a nominee and loses. Because then all of a sudden it sends the message
Yeah.
you
Well,
you nominate a terrible candidate and there's consequences. And then maybe parties will start being smarter.
um, don't count on it. Don't count on it. I mean, you're right, but don't count on it because Republicans are showing over and over, and they're not going to be very smart. This is interesting. In North Carolina, a House delegate, 106, where Democratic incumbent Carla Cunningham running for reelection, she has voted consistently to overturn Governor Stein's
Yeah,
vetoes. She is
she's
losing
done.
74-18. Ooh, that's bad. She might be going down. So I guess she's a pro-ICE Democrat, which is a weird thing
There
to say that anyone could be
there
pro-ICE.
there are like 3 of them. I read a story on them yesterday, I think. They're all older. I believe that at least 2 of them are, minorities, and they have voted consistently with the Republicans because 'cause they're basically socially conservative. And they're getting primaried by people who are younger saying, "Hey, 75-year-old something, this is not gonna work." Um, it
Yeah,
sounds like a bad
exactly.
night on both sides of the aisle for North Carolina's state legislators. Because if Bill Berger loses, I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
What is
Um,
his position exactly? Remind me of
he's
that.
the state Senate majority leader. He's the Republican leader, longtime Republican state Senate leader,
Oh yeah,
a
right, right.
and he seems to be losing. Um, and it seems like Valerie Foushee is holding, her serve, at least for now. In a
Okay.
very close race in the congressional race. But in Texas, the congressional primaries are looking ugly for in both parties. I mean, Crenshaw looks like he might be toast, which is kind of crazy.
Now, who's he
But
running against? Can you tell us a little bit about the guy he's running against? Do you know anything about this?
I vaguely remember the name Steve Toth as being very far right. I can't point
Okay.
to a specific position, but I feel like he's maybe a state legislator. I can look this up. Who yeah, he's a businessman, ordained pastor, and member of the Texas House of Representatives. So he's a
Interesting.
state legislator who I believe is very far right and is attacking Dan Crenshaw from the right.
Dan
And it
Crenshaw,
may have
kind
worked.
of a clown. That's that. They apparently found somebody more clownish to run against him and defeat him.
Well,
Early. No, go ahead. Go
that
ahead.
is the playbook for Texas Republicans. Every time you
Sure.
think they've hit maximum clown, they're like, "Oh, you haven't seen anything yet.
We
We
can go
can."
more.
Yeah.
So my
That's their
real question
way.
tonight is Tony Gonzalez political career over? Tony
He
Gonzalez, of
seems to be in the
course,
lead.
it's only 7% in though. It's kind of early.
Yes.
So Gonzalez, I mean, I guess if you're Democrats, do you want Gonzalez to win?
Well, this is a really interesting question. I don't know who our candidate is, or even if we have one in that race. That is a district that was once very hotly contested last decade. Will Hurd held that district before Gonzalez, the moderate Republican guy. I want to switch parties desperately because I actually think he could be a statewide contender for Democrats. But anyway, that used to be a really hotly contested race that had moved away from the Democrats. But I guess there's 2 theories of the case. The one is Tony Gonzalez now has more baggage than, most airlines, these days, and he would
Brian,
therefore.
Brian, you can do
No?
better than that. He's got
Uh,
he's got more baggage than a Samsonite warehouse.
okay, I like that better.
Thank
Samsonite
you.
Warehouse. Alright, we'll go with that. But he is you've got that, but then his opponent is the YouTube gun nut. Which doesn't seem like a great recipe for winning a competitive congressional race.
Did I tell you what I read his bio was that he is a YouTuber and gun store owner. It's like
Yes.
literally a Republican candidate that was drawn up in a lab, honestly. You know, the
Mhm.
perfect candidate.
Yep. I mean, I really, I, I don't know. Let's put it this way: that is another race that I think Republicans would have to spend money on. And we should pause and mention the case of Mike Johnson right now, who adamantly refuses to get rid of Tony Gonzalez because he doesn't want to lose his majority, who is also pressuring Neil Dunn, who apparently has a terminal diagnosis, to
Terminal
stay in the
diagnosis.
House. The man is dying, and you're like, you can't resign because we need you. That's like the most pathetic amount of weakness I've
I,
ever seen in any
I
congressional
gotta say for
leader.
the record, like the Dunn thing is gross, but the Gonzalez thing, like the, Johnson better off just letting him resign. Like honestly,
Yeah.
because he's an embarrassment at this point. You Republicans, especially Republican women, calling on him to resign. I just don't. Look. You've got to one. I guess you do want to get some things passed between now and November. But honestly, like I just don't. I just he's a disaster. Gonzalez is, and it's hard for me to believe that it isn't better off just to have him.
Especially
Go
because
on
we don't know
from
what else is gonna
Washington.
come out, right? Like, this isn't over. We don't have
Really,
every
Brian?
last
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
detail.
Wait, worse than him asking for pressuring a woman on his staff to have sex with him and send him pictures, who then set herself on fire and committing suicide. Like
No,
worse than that?
I mean,
No, 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 Brian, sir, no, 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 Brian. What do you think could be worse than that?
I mean additional
Did he lit the
details.
match? I mean, literally, what could be worse than
I
that?
I mean additional details, additional texts, photos. I mean, I'm just saying
Uh,
we don't have every piece of evidence in this case, and that means there will be more evidence that comes out that therefore reminds people about Tony Gonzalez. I
I
mean,
suppose that is a charitable way to look at it. I suppose.
but I mean, now, apparently there's at least 7 North Carolina state legislators currently losing their primaries.
Are you
Wait,
serious?
wait,
Republicans or
that's what
Democrats?
the person did not clarify. I think it's a mixture, but I don't know how many of
Wow.
each.
Well,
But
anti-incumbency. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
something else.
I do
Fushi
think
is holding on. She's the congresswoman, right? Fourth congressional district.
she is a two-term congresswoman. This is a rerun of a primary 4 years ago. And this is another one that has apparently become split over Israel. Fushi
Oh boy,
apparently has in the past supported Israel, and her opponent is attacking her for it. And so APAC tried to run in with some money late to help Fushi because she was getting dramatically outspent. Um,
interesting.
but as far as I can tell, she is a down the line regular old Democrat. There's no firing offense here. This isn't John Fetterman. There
Oh
isn't.
no, if you're nice to Jews, that is a firing offense in the current
It
Democratic
does seem
Party.
to be that way.
If you
Apparently,
don't hate Jews, you are in serious, serious political trouble.
I read tonight that in the Illinois Senate race, and that primary is 2 weeks from tonight, they are
I read the
using
story. I know.
that
I
that
know.
that someone met with the Israeli opposition leader like 5, 6 years ago, and
Sippy
that is
Livni,
being held.
who is left of center.
It's just crazy to me. Um, but it is, I think one thing that I would take away from the fact that we currently have at least 2 congressmen losing primaries, maybe 7 state legislators in North Carolina, even if 3 or 4 of those lose, is that the voters of the country are very cranky. And that's
Yeah,
another thing that
I agree.
will benefit Democrats in November because they're not the majority party. And a cranky electorate looking to just kick out people in office is going to benefit the out party. And so if I were Republicans, I wouldn't be looking at this and feeling particularly good about the state of things.
Yeah.
But
By the way, anybody have a comment or a question aside from wanting to see my dog? Please leave it leave a message, and we will leave in the chat, and we will try to answer as best we can. So please, any questions? I don't care what the question is. Just ask it. Don't care. Just do it.
that's
By the way,
dangerous.
I know. I don't care. I don't give a shit. It's late. It's 9:30 on a Tuesday night, and I don't know, drunk with power. So listen, the Attorney General's race in Texas. This is kind of fun, but with 34% of Chip Roy is losing. Chip Roy is one of the most toxic politicians in American politics. He's a member of the House. I guess he's running for Attorney General. He is losing. You know what? I hate to wish bad things happening on people, but I'd like to see him lose.
I mean, I would like to wish losing on someone. I don't think that's a bad enough thing that, like,
That's true.
I won't wish that on someone. But Chip Roy is in a really strong competition, which is for the biggest loser in Texas politics. You can't have it all Republicans. It's just too hard. He's up there with his former boss, Ted Cruz. Can you imagine having had worked in that office when he's the chief of staff and Cruz is the member? I mean,
Jesus
God,
Christ!
two obnoxious people.
I'd
Um,
want to jump off a bridge. Honestly.
truly.
Um,
But yeah, Roy is really terrible. The thing that saves people like that is that we have Tommy Tuberville in office, so they can't be the worst. Although, shout out to Mark Wayne Mullen, the senator from Oklahoma, who is trying to prove that Tuberville's not the dumbest senator. Um, Mark
you
Wayne
know,
Mullen. Where do we begin? He didn't know that the Ayatollah in Iran was not the original Ayatollah. Even though the original Ayatollah has been dead since 1989. He called
yeah.
Pete Hegseth the president multiple times, and they said there was a third thing that he said this week
He
that
said
was
that we're
that
not at
stupid.
war. We're
Oh,
not at
yes.
war. Literally after like 10 minutes earlier saying we're at war. I gotta say for the record, this is a really interesting competition to me because up until this point, the stupidest member of Congress award was like just this tooth and nail fight between Marsha Blackburn and Tommy Tuberville, right? Dumb as a box of rocks perched on a larger box of rocks perched on a tire fire. That's how dumb these two politicians are. But Mark Wayne Mullen was like, fuck it. I want to get in this game as well. And he has really, I got to say, to his credit, he's made a strong, strong play to being the dumbest member of the U.S. Senate. And again, this is
I
stiff
didn't think it was
competition.
possible to get in
I
on
didn't
that
think so either.
competition.
I didn't
I
think so
mean,
either. I mean, look, I will say this. Give him a little credit. Fetterman was kind of making a little feint toward it for a while there. With the whole. I mean, he's a little bit, but he's not quite there. But Tuberville and Blackburn, that's like the goats of stupid members of the Senate. And Mullen is
truly.
like, I don't give. He's just like, I'm going right in there. So to his credit,
And he's
Bobby asked a
younger, so
question.
he'll be around longer.
He's got plenty of time to really, to hone his stupid bona fides. So Bobby asked a question in the chat. This is actually to Brian, I believe. Would you accept Eagles and Phillies losing seasons in exchange for a Democratic Senate victory?
God,
Oh
that
man, that's
that
a
is a
tough one.
nearly impossible question. Um, how much am I sacrificing for America? Is what you're asking.
Bobby, you should have asked me would I accept a Lions losing the Super Bowl for would I rather have a Lions Super Bowl or a Democratic Senate victory? And Lions Super Bowl, sorry. They'll win it
allow
back.
me to,
They'll win it back in 28. It's fine. It's fine.
allow me to remind people that uh, when the Phillies won a World Series in 2008, we had a very good election that follows that. So I'm just going to say that that's what I want to happen again.
Fair.
Um, and
Fair.
that those two things should always be related, so that all of America roots for the Phillies.
Fair. I mean, when the Pistons won the championship in 2004, things didn't work out so well in the fall. So, what do you do? You do what you do. What more can you ask for? I mean, look, I can't really compare the two, but I would pretty much give up my youngest born to get a Lions Super Bowl victory. Yeah, he heard that. No, he heard that. Yeah, okay. I was. I give up my father for Padres World Series. There we go. Okay. Okay. So interesting. Looks like Al Green might be in serious political trouble.
Yeah, Al Green got a very unfortunate draw with the redistricting that they did. He's
Yeah, did
facing
he?
a new member of Congress, Christian Menifee, who was just won that special election that the Republicans held off for 10 months.
Oh, is that?
On
Oh,
So
the
that's
guy who
an
took Sylvester Turner's thing, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And the thing is, he is dramatically younger than Al Green by like
yeah.
30 plus years, and also a favorite of crypto, and the crypto
Okay.
industry. So they put a lot of money behind Christian Menifee, apparently. And I'm going to look up exactly the age difference here. Christian Menefee is 37. Al Green is 80, I believe. So
So what
you
you're saying is Al Green said to his constituents, "Let's stay together," and they were like, "No, we're not interested."
to be fair, Al Green is 78. I was off by 2 years, but yeah, that is a very good one. But
Yeah,
yeah, we were talking about a guy 40 years younger, and Green. He's been the underdog all along in that member versus member race. The other thing is Menifee just spent a year campaigning,
yeah, it's true.
so
That is a huge thing
yeah,
right there.
it
It's
is
a
a
huge thing.
different district, but there is some overlap. So it I think helped him that way. But I do think that was an age thing. The other thing on the Crenshaw race, what I'm seeing
He is
on
now losing by 18 points.
apparently he got screwed by the redistricting because they took a lot of his district away, like his base, and put more of Toth's base in.
Interesting.
Um, and the other thing that has hurt Crenshaw is he apparently is feuding with Ted Cruz, and Cruz endorsed his primary opponent and cut an ad for him, so has hurt him as well. But it is there's an anti-incumbent, you know,
Yeah,
feeling sentiment in the electorate. That's all you can say. Dave Wasserman called the Texas Republican race is going to a runoff, Cornyn and Paxton, which is what everybody
no surprise
expected.
there. No surprise
It,
there.
no surprise
I mean, it's
at
interesting from
all.
Vote Hub. They're saying Talarico's best regions are areas with high Hispanic Democratic population. Look, look, I don't think Crockett got in the race late. She didn't raise enough money, but boy, she pissed off Hispanic voters in a big way, and she really screwed the pooch on this one. I got to say, like, I don't know if she could have. Maybe she could. She could have won this race. Definitely, she really screwed up with Hispanic voters, and she played on this idea that she can win black voters and like solid Democrats who are like really partisan and not going to happen. She really, I think she ran a poor race, and Tallarico ran a much better race, and that's why he's going to win tonight.
I think that's absolutely true, and I do think though that it's worth underscoring that for years we've had this dynamic where the Republican establishment does not hold, and the Democratic establishment
Does
and
hold.
holds, and the Democratic voters are very pragmatic. The minute I was teaching yesterday, the 70s and 80s and Democrats, and I was struck by a quote from someone in one of the books I was teaching that it's basically people were for Jesse Jackson until he actually had a chance to win, and they were like, "Oh shit, we don't want to do this." And then
Right.
they switched up, and that happened with Bernie in 2020, where as soon as it looked like he was actually gonna win, everybody coalesced around Biden because there's worries about electability. And, that was the argument that people made, at least online, but also, on the ground a little bit for Tallarico is, look, this guy isn't perfect. He's not maybe the ideal candidate, but he's better than she is from a standpoint of can win in Texas. And the very worst case
Yeah.
scenario in a Tallarico Paxton race is Republicans are going to have to divert a lot of money away from Ohio and Alaska and Iowa and North Carolina and Michigan and all
Yes,
these
this is
other
expensive.
competitive races.
Texas is
I
an
mean,
expensive state to run in.
I think people don't even understand how
It's
expensive when you're talking about that many
expensive.
major media markets. You're talking Austin, Houston, Dallas.
Yeah, I agree. It's Houston, it's San Antonio, it's Dallas, it's Austin. It's a huge thing. Um,
It's just expensive.
excuse me. We got a question. Lynn Mustard asked, "Do you think?" So this is an interesting question about the. So this morning we had a news story that the Trump administration was backing off of their lawsuit, trying to defend the executive orders going after law firms. Um, and then later today, we found out that they reversed it, which is unprecedented. Apparently, and she asked if this was because of bad press. Yes, apparently Trump saw the coverage of this, got so pissed off, and told the Department of Justice to go back and actually pursue the case, which he's going to lose, for the record.
I mean, this is again, the Republican Party is a clown show. And that's
Well,
not really fair to clowns. But
yeah, no, it's insulting to circuses everywhere.
it really they're just not good at this. And they don't know. Donald Trump also has no idea. He's like the person who puts his hand on a hot stove and doesn't know how to take it off. He just
Yeah,
keeps holding it there as it's burning him. Um, Here's one interesting as I look at results. Jacob Rubashkin tweeted that I'm not joking. The Democratic aligned candidate in the Arkansas State Supreme Court race is outperforming Kamala Harris by 52 points, 47 points, and 21 points, respectively, in Prairie, Pike, and Garland counties.
Interesting.
Harris lost by 31 points. I don't know what counties those are, but those are massive margins, and those are 95% reporting almost done counties. So every sign that we're getting in every time that people go to the polls is that it's not a good time to be a Republican right now.
Democrats
And
are pissed off and they are voting. That is what we take
yep,
away from all of this.
yep, they're showing up in huge numbers. They can't wait to vote, and I don't see anything that's going to change that. If anything, I can kind of project things that will make it worse for Republicans over the next 8 months, not better, and that will
I
lead
can
them
too.
to,
I can too.
yeah, I mean,
So
uh,
listen, I'm going to ask again, please, guys. Ask questions. Ask us what you think. Like, please, we really just this is much more fun if you know tell us what you think. So please do that if you don't mind.
it looks like
Uh,
the
um,
projection I just saw said that Paxton is going to win the Republican race by about 4 points, which is probably better for John Cornyn than they would have expected. But
yeah,
it is worth noting that other than the 2014 Mississippi Senate race, there's not a lot of cases of somebody who lost the primary comeback winning the runoff. I mean, I could think historically of some, but that's not usually unless you lose it like, 49.4 to 49.3 or something like that. Usually, if you lose by several points or more, you don't typically come back in the runoff because the electorate, at least as the establishment candidate, because the electorate is going to be
I would
smaller and
be.
more conservative.
Honest question. I don't know why John Cornyn even wants this anymore. Dude is like in his 70s. I mean, seriously, like you're gonna lose to Paxton. That's gonna be humiliating. By the way, I gotta say for the record, like I was like, Paxton is a really bad candidate. He's a really, really bad candidate. And I don't think people realize how bad he is. Like, this is a guy who was impeached by Texas Republicans, okay, for corruption. This is a guy who cheated on and divorced his wife, right? And his wife filed for divorce on quote unquote biblical grounds. I just think that, he's like Roy Moore, not quite as bad as Roy Moore. That's the Alabama guy. That guy who got kicked out of malls because he was picking up teenage girls. True story, not exaggerating. And you know, he I mean, look, he's not as bad as Roy Moore, but Texas is a bluer state than Alabama. I just think Tallarico is going to be a hard guy to go after. They're going to go after him as a liberal, but he is have that Christian background. He's a seminarian. I just think this race, I don't know, man. Like I said before, that I think this race favors Paxton, but man, I don't think it's that close. Like I shouldn't say I don't think it's that much of an edge that he has. 55,
Let,
45, 60,
let,
40 maybe.
let me put up a tweet that I think summarizes this quite nicely. Laksha Jain and Sean Trendy are going at it a little bit about how we should consider this race. And Trendy said, "Dude, Paxton is atrociously bad. He's Blake Masters if he had been indicted and reached an
Yeah,
out of court settlement with prosecutors, and then
man, that's
cheated
harsh.
on."
That's harsh.
And then, oh, he's not done. And then cheated on and divorced his wife and got impeached along the way, and then had a nasty primary drag out. I mean, Sean's saying it's a pure toss up. I would probably tip it
Mm.
slightly to Paxton, but I and maybe 55-45. I mean, I want to see what the total number of votes on each side is tonight. I want to, that will give us an indication about enthusiasm. But I mean, this guy, let's put it this way. 20 years ago, Ken Paxton would have been unelectable in a US Senate race, just about
Yeah, no
anywhere.
doubt about that.
You
No
know,
doubt about
he
that.
he is just terrible. And what you asked, why is Cornyn doing this? I think that there are two reasons. Reason one is he really, really, really hates Ken Paxton,
I
and
think that's true. Yes, I agree with
well,
you
he
on that
basically
point.
told Jonathan Martin that a couple of weeks ago that like if he basically said if there was somebody who I thought could do a good job who could have succeeded me, I wouldn't have run. And so he's doing this one last time, trying to destroy Ken Paxton, which is hilarious. The other thing is apparently there's going to be a major blitz of senators calling the White House, basically now saying, "Please, sir, endorse John Cornyn," because their whole theory is we get to a runoff, we get Trump to endorse, and that's how we win.
Do you think that
But
happens? I don't think that happens.
I keep saying this, but I don't think that Trump wants to endorse Cornyn because I don't think that Trump is sure that his endorsement can drag Cornyn over the finish line. I don't think that he wants to be associated with the
Great point.
loser.
Great point. Great
And,
point, Brian.
he
Let me give
doesn't
that a standing ovation right there. That's a great point.
I appreciate it. I mean, I just I don't think Cornyn is as establishment gets. He is a relic of the George W. Bush era in Texas.
Yes.
He's conservative, but he's not. His idea of a scathing critique of someone is to call them unfit because they're too liberal or something. He's just not firebrand. That isn't who he is. And Ken Paxton fits the base, especially in Texas, much better. He is a hero of the base. I you know, it's crazy to me. I mean, he had to threaten his financial backers had to threaten the state senators to keep them from kicking him out of office. And again, this is
I know.
all people
I
in his
know.
own party. So I think people are underestimating. The other thing about Paxton is he doesn't raise a ton of money himself. So you start getting into a general, and that national Republican money is going to have to try to dig him out. And let me tell you something. This is going to be the nastiest race of the cycle, because it the only way that they can drag Ken Paxton over the finish line is to destroy James Tallarico. There's nothing positive that you can say about Ken Paxton. I mean, they did run an ad
You have
last
to
week with
spend a
his
shit
daughter.
ton of money. They're going to spend $200 million at least in this runoff over the next 3 months. Okay. In that time, Tallarico can go all across Texas. Look, here's the thing. I generally ascribe to the view, the political science view, that competitive elections are actually good for candidates and it toughens them up for general elections. I think the best example of that is Obama in 2008, by the way. Although that race was a cakewalk, to be honest, against McCain. Um, but I do think, like, the problem in this Texas situation is that Tallarico is a fresh face. Not everyone knows him. Republicans are going to have to discredit him. And he's going to have a 3-month head start to define himself for the electorate. Okay. That's a big advantage for Tallarico, especially in the places a lot of Hispanic voters. So he's already done that, get to do it more with Republican voters. So I think it's a huge benefit to him. I also just think, like, Cornyn's going to have to take off the gloves on Paxton, which means he's going to have to get into all of the dirty stories about Paxton. And I think it's going to hurt him. So again, this is really hard to say. It's March. We're 8 months away from the general election. That's a lifetime of politics. But I do think I kind of agree with Sean a little bit. Like, I think Lakshmi is kind of overstating the argument a little bit. Like, I kind of think this is a gonna be a close race. By the way, we got a great question. Bobby, thank you so much. 2 questions from you. Where's the rest of you? Okay, 89 of you in here. Ask some questions, please. Is Texas better off with Paxton in the Senate than as lieutenant governor? Boy, that's a good
Well,
question.
he's
I
attorney
think
general.
Texas attorney general. Sorry, attorney general. To
Dan
my
Patrick, the
mind,
former talk radio host, is the lieutenant governor,
that's right.
who actually was the one who helped orchestrate Paxton's escape in the impeachment trial.
That's right. That's right. I think Texas is better off with Paxton in the Senate. He can do less damage there than he can as attorney general.
Well, one thing I would say, slight disagreement on your point about primaries. I think that is true unless you have like an August or a September primary. I think sometimes those competitive, very late primaries, like the Democrats have in Michigan, are problematic because it's hard to bring everything back together over the course of 2 months. But otherwise, yeah, I don't have a huge problem with competitive primaries so long as they don't become like the political equivalent of nuclear wars. That's
Fair.
really the one thing that concerns me as, when you start talking about those races that are just that nasty and the two sides
Right.
end up hating each other and can't unify. But otherwise, I do think it helps to show who's a gifted politician or not. I mean, I'll give you a great example. 2006, there was a guy, I believe his name was John Marson, was the state auditor in Montana, and he was the establishment choice to be the Democratic nominee for Senate. And he ran against I think he was a state senator by the name of John Tester, who was not the favorite of the establishment and who proved himself to be a really damn good politician and candidate.
Yeah.
Is Crockett a media creation? I think that what Crockett is Crockett is very much a 2020s politician, which is to say that she's very good with the pithy one-liner that goes viral. And that isn't necessarily being good on the stump. That is, I can say something that gets clipped on TikTok and goes around, and when people want to see a fighter, I look like a fighter, and that's sort of what her specialty is. Um, I don't think she was a media creation so much as a social
Yeah.
media creation
I
in some
I
ways.
I look, I agree with that actually. I agree. She got attention because she was very prominent on the Hill in congressional testimony, congressional hearings, going after Republicans, going after Marjorie Taylor Greene, insulting her in a personal way, which a lot of Democrats like, a lot of liberals like. I shouldn't say liberals, a lot of Democrats like it, both progressive, both moderates and liberals. But I do think that she got a little high on her own supply, if I'm being honest. I think she got a little, I think that's what happened to her. And I think at the end of the day, she just believed her own press clippings and thought she was a bigger thing than she was. And she's going to lose tonight. And I think her political career probably for now it's over. I mean, she's not going to be in the House anymore. And she may, you know what
Yeah.
she'll probably do? She'll go like do a talk show or something and she'll,
That's what I
mm,
said. I think she ran because she had people saying, "You can win, you can win. You're kind of a hero to the base." And they sort of said to her, "Well, what's the worst case scenario? You have a very lucrative podcast. You work less
exactly.
hard, you make a lot more money, and this is good." By the way, the one sad thing or ironic thing, not I wouldn't, it's ironic, not sad. Apparently Chip Roy got filleted by one of his opponents. That's Dave Weagle's word, because he criticized Trump. So that's apparently what cost him
Are you
his
serious?
primary.
Really?
That's apparently what happened. He was insufficiently Trumpy for the Texas primary electorate, which
I'm gonna have to
is
say
kind
the
of
video again.
crazy.
So I need you to vamp for a second, Brian.
Sure. I can definitely vamp. Well, one thing you're seeing here that I always forget on election nights is how slow some of this stuff is. It's a little bit different on a general election night because you have races coming in from all over the place. But even there, the first couple hours on election night November before like 9 p.m. Eastern, it's gonna be, just sitting around and waiting for election results to drop. And in a case like this where you only have a couple of states, we're just kind of watching results as they come in slowly, and getting numbers, and it's a slow kind of run up. Now, here's something that is absolutely ridiculous. A judge ordered that Dallas County keep their polls open till 9 p.m., right? And apparently, the state Supreme Court has now blocked that order and saying that everybody who voted after 7, they need to separate out those ballots. Talk about chaos. And
Chaos.
apparently this happened. Some Republicans wouldn't run the same primary with Democrats or something. But will Maxine, I think that they will try to drag Trump in, and make him testify. I think that there is a 0% chance of that happening, at least while he's president. Because they can't really hold him the DOJ is not gonna do anything to hold him in contempt, so there's no reason for him to testify. I think that if there is a
Right.
Democratic president and a Democratic attorney general, he's gonna have to testify now. That's the precedent. That's why he was
Mm,
not happy to see Bill Clinton have to testify. But, um,
exactly.
by the way, the Democrat Alex Holliday has defeated the Republican Brian Renshaw in
Ooh,
the Arkansas State
ooh,
House District number 70. That's a
flip.
flip.
That's a flip.
Flip.
That's a flip. That's a flip. Also, Steve Toth apparently defeated Dan Crenshaw in the Texas second, Texas 2 GOP primary.
Yeah.
By the way, at Shea Beach Boy, the party is getting started.
Uh-oh, it's party time. Ah,
Party time. I don't drink beer that
Sláinte.
often, but the hell. You know what? We're going late tonight, so what the hell?
Yeah. I mean, just you wait till they have us at 2 a.m. On election night waiting for the Alaska Senate results. You're laughing, man. When do we start getting Alaska results? Like midnight, something like that, and the Senate could come down to that. Very easily, the
Could.
Senate could be riding on the post midnight hours as we sit
No,
around
it
being like,
totally could. Totally could.
yeah,
Alaska could determine the Senate. Yeah, it's true.
by the way, with Alaska, there is a possibility they don't do the, instant or the ranked choice thing for, like, 10 days after the election, so we could have
Oh
a
my
good 10-day
god.
period where we don't
Oh
know
my
who won the
god.
Senate.
What a
It
shit show.
really
What a
it could
shit
be a
show.
total shit show,
Yeah.
and but, yeah, I would expect even because I at this point, I feel pretty good that Democrats are gonna pick up 3 Senate seats, although Graham Plattner could easily put that at risk. Um, but I think I feel pretty good about Ohio, given the environment that's shaping up, given Sherrod Brown's history of running ahead of the
Hmm,
ticket.
interesting.
Um, well, I was thinking about it. Lax's whole argument about Texas is if we assume that we get to like a D+7 electorate, it was like an R+1.3 in 2024. If we flip that 8 points to like a D+7 electorate, you need the candidate to account for 6 points more to win Texas, right? Well, if you project that to Ohio, which is basically the same calculation, Sherrod Brown ran 8 points ahead of Kamala Harris in
8 points ahead of
2024.
Kamala Harris. That's right.
So
That's
that
right.
that would get you over that last, hump there. Um, and he won in 2018 in a similar environment, albeit against a weaker candidate. So I'm just kind of
Yeah,
feeling
he's running
pretty
as incumbent
decent.
this time.
He is, but it's an appointed incumbent, albeit one who's been in
I know.
politics for
I know.
years. But
By the way,
again,
hold on. In the Arkansas State House District 70 special election, that was a district Harris won by a point in 2024.
yes, yeah.
This is a 27-point victory, a 26-point overperformance in the Arkansas State House. That's pretty
It,
good if you're a Democrat. It's
oh, okay.
pretty good.
It seems like the Al Green Christian Menifee race is going to go to a runoff
A
because
runoff. I
they
saw
just
that. The
have to keep
poor
running.
guy. He's 78 years old. Doesn't he deserve a break?
Seriously, I mean, it is. By the way, if you want to know why you should support ranked choice voting, reason one is that you tend to get more moderate, sane elected officials. But secondly, the other reason is you don't have runoffs, which are stupid. Runoffs have smaller electorates, they cost massive amounts of money, and you could just do it all at once. Why do more work?
It's ridiculous. It's so stupid. By the way, Jordan, I think I know what that is, said, I think you guys should talk about the Arkansas State House races all night long. You know what? Don't give us any ideas, buddy. All right? By the way, as long as I have you here, who's going to win the Michigan Democratic Senate primary? Jordan, any thoughts?
I
'Cause
like
I
this.
was
Michael's
looking,
asking questions.
I was looking on, I am. I was looking on Kalshi the other day, and what's her name? McMorrow was like a huge favorite to win in the prediction markets. And I'm like, what? I don't get it because the polling doesn't really suggest that.
One of
It says
my
now election was today. Interesting.
w-
Okay.
one of my friends is working on the Stevens campaign, and she's made the point that in a race like that, it
Yeah.
doesn't take very many people betting to tip the betting markets. You get like 3 or 4
It's
people
true.
dropping significant money, and that is sort of what's happening there. But certainly, I would think that that seems kind of skewed, given that she's losing in all the polls. You were talking last week about the betting market being skewed in the Texas race, that it was way too heavily weighted to Tallarico.
Yeah.
And at least in that case, he was leading in some of the polls, although the polls were absolutely all over in this race. But
Yeah.
the Michigan one, and the thing with the Michigan one is that's an August primary. So we're
I know it's
talking
late.
5 months. That's an eternity from now. I mean,
Yeah. I
absolute
don't think
eternity.
McMorrow should be. You want to me, that's a buying opportunity right there. I don't think McMorrow should be that favored this early in the race. She's on Kalshi. She's at 68%. And what's it called? Stevens is 17%, Elsite at 15%. That's ridiculous. That's a buying opportunity. You should be buying. I can't. I shouldn't be recommend this, but if you're a gambler, I would be buying Stevens right now because that just seems way too low. I don't. I mean, it's too early to be for. I mean, this has McMoore as a 4-1 favorite. That's crazy. That's crazy talk right there. I don't buy that at all. I'm not buying that. So
I
there you go.
agree with that. I think that is true. It looks like Tony Gonzalez. Well, he's ahead, but that looks like runoff territory to me. He's got 45.6 with about half the vote in. Herrera has 39.6, and then two other candidates have 14.8 between them. And it's hard to imagine that Gonzalez holds up over 2 more months. Given the fact that his opponent can just basically run newspaper stories about this affair that he had, or sexual
Yeah.
harassment is probably the better way to
Affair.
describe it.
How about sexual predation
Yeah,
leading to a woman committing suicide?
yeah,
Well, I don't know
seriously.
if, I
I
mean, she
mean,
committed suicide. Yeah, it's bad.
I and I mean, by the way, that we should point out that he's not the only sexual predator in the Republican House. They have was Corey Mills had a protection order against him, I thought, at one point. I
In any ordinary Congress, Cody Mills would be out on his ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way,
Um,
this is interesting. Amy Walter has an interesting point here that in North Carolina, Roy Cooper, the Democratic race, is getting he's got 619,000 votes to 522 for Michael Watley, his opponent. That's $100,000, vote, gap. It's pretty impressive, actually, for
again,
turnout for Democrats in North Carolina.
it's a sign of enthusiasm.
It is.
And
It is.
you're seeing this. I suspect when all is said and done, um, I think that you're going to see more Democratic votes cast in the Texas primary as well. By the way, just called all three North Carolina Democrats, Shelley Willingham, Carla Cunningham, and Nasif Majid, who voted to overturn Governor Stein's vetoes, have been sent packing by the voters tonight.
Wow. Seriously. That's interesting, isn't it? That
Well,
is interesting.
remember, if we go back to November, the one enthusiasm for North Carolina Democrats
I'm
was that
vamp for a second, Brian.
they finally
Vamp. Vamp.
had they finally had enough votes in the state house to sustain Governor Stein's vetoes. And these people made that not true. These Democrats basically betrayed their own party. And when you do that, when you are the bad member of the family, it doesn't work well for you. And I think that that's what happened here is the voters made a very clear signal that when you vote with the other party regularly on key votes, you lose. It's really
Yeah,
not that hard.
I think that's exactly right. And I think, good for them. Right? Like, I mean, like North Carolina is already like not a good state for Democrats. It's not so much to ask for the state's representatives to vote for Democrats. All right, good night. I'm saying good night to my youngest. Good night. Good night.
And
Good night.
and
Good night.
here we're not even asking them to vote substantively on any issue. We're saying you will vote to uphold the Democratic governor's vetoes.
Yeah.
That's
Do you? I
usually a
wonder. Did
party line
Stein
thing.
did Stein campaign against them? Did he endorse their opponents? I'm just curious
I
if
don't
you have any
know.
idea about that.
I'm not sure. The story I read yesterday in the Times, I want to say, did not mention that, but it really it strikes me that that's like the one thing you can't do is to be that guy or that
Not
woman
in
who
this
is
political moment. Not in this political
no.
moment. Democrats want loyalty, I think. And
And the other
yeah,
thing is that because North Carolina is so badly gerrymandered, these are very Democratic districts. It's not like you're in a swing district where they might say, "Well, we've got to, abide by this person because we can't do better." These are blue districts. So
yeah.
you're not going to get away with that kind of thing. It strikes me as these are older people who've been in office for a while who didn't understand that the rules of the game changed. And when the rules of the game change and you don't change with it, that's how you go to the showers.
I
You
agree.
know, you,
No disagreement. So a couple
Um,
interesting little points there. I'm seeing people making the argument that Harris's endorsement of Crockett was a terrible decision. No, no, no. Good decision. Good decision.
can we talk about
Smart
another?
move,
Can we
please.
digress off of the
I'm
primary
going to plug
night
in now,
to
Brian, because I am low on battery juice. So I'm going to plug in right now.
um can we talk about another endorsement that I think is actually a monumental gamble by a someone who has a pretty bright future, but did something stupid this week? By which I'm talking about Ruben Gallego endorsing Graham Plattner.
Oh, let's talk about that.
You know,
You
I
know what
think
that
that
was,
his
by the way? I have a story about this. If I can just before you go, Rebecca Katz, who is Plattner's campaign manager and also Gallego's manager, apparently orchestrated this, and
okay.
she is the one responsible for this. By the way, she called me and she attacked me for bringing up anti-Semitism today. To which I asked her, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that standing up against anti-Semitism meant endorsing or working for the guy with the Nazi tattoo." Thanks for letting me know about that, Rebecca. But go ahead.
I
Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say I thought that it was a gamble by Gallego thinking Plattner wins and wanting to get a chit for a future presidential race.
Yeah.
That was my theory, but it may just be a consultant hooking, people up. But I think it was a monumental blunder because I think that it's entirely possible that Plattner wins the primary, loses the general election, and then everyone who was on his side looks very stupid if it costs the Democrats the Senate. And again,
Do you think he definitely loses the general? Do you think he definitely
well,
loses the general?
okay, so let's flash back. Last Wednesday, we sat here and said, we're not sure that he loses, given the baggage he has,
Yeah, that's true. We
because
did say that, didn't we? We did
he's
say that.
doing great in the polls. And what has happened since then? It broke that he retweeted some far right person, that he went on a podcast with a far right host, anti-Semitic host, and said that he was a big fan of the show. That he said we should be conciliatory towards China. So, if that's what's happened in the week
Oh,
since we said that this
he
was winnable.
he also said, and this pissed me off actually. He also said Susan Collins voted to send me to Iraq. Okay, let's be clear on this point. Sorry, back to the dog. Baxter is having
Wait,
some
wait,
issues
we
with
have to
peanut butter on the
interrupt.
floor.
Dave Wasserman has called that James Tallarico has won the Texas Senate primary, Texas
Wow, there you
Democratic
go.
Senate
That's it.
primary. So it is over.
It's over. It's over.
Um,
Um,
but yeah,
so
you were talking about Susan Collins sending him to war. Uh,
right. So let's be clear. Uh, Graham Plattner volunteered for the U.S. Marine Corps. Okay, he also did 3 tours of service. Thank you for your service. And he later joined Blackwater as a private military, what's it called? Soldier.
contractor, contractor.
Contractor. Jesus Christ, a contractor. Yes. Um, what the fuck, dude? It's like you didn't get. I mean, that's like it wasn't like you were drafted. It wasn't like it was
Wait,
Vietnam. What the hell are you
wait,
talking
wait.
about?
You left a part out, which is that I
Oh,
read
did
this
I? Sorry.
afternoon
What?
that he signed up in 2004 after the war was already going. Like this was not
Unbelievable.
you signed up and then they shipped you
Unbelievable.
out. This was you signed up when you know where you're getting sent and you know that we're at war and now you're blaming the politicians who voted for that war. I mean, take some ownership. Granted, look, we thank him for his service that I don't like running down a veteran who served us, multiple tours, served honorably. But to blame the politicians when you signed up and you signed up after we're already at war, again, I have to question his judgment and his capabilities as a candidate here. The stuff that comes out of his mouth or out of his fingers onto social media is bad, and I'm really questioning, you know, I just don't know that he can hold up for another 8 months at this point. Because
Right. Right.
last week we're sitting here saying, look at the polls, he's not going down despite all this stuff. But then we just get another wave of stuff, and you got to wonder how much more is out there, how much more the Mills campaign and the Collins campaign are sitting on, a vault of opposition research to just
I
drop
also
on him.
want to just remind you that there was a lot of what's the word? A lot of talk about how um, the polling in Texas was way off, right? So the polling in Texas had Crockett with a big lead. Um, and now I think that's a problem because it was hard to model the electorate because we hadn't seen a big, heavily contested Democratic Senate race in a long time. But you know, there's an argument that Elliot Morris made this argument that like the polls, primary polls are often not very accurate. So I don't know how much the polling that I've seen so far in this race. The assumption is that Mills is losing. Looking at Kalshi, I think that I remember correctly, like, what's his name? Plattner's a huge favorite, but I don't know. I don't know how that race is going to go. I'm not convinced necessarily that um, she's going to lose the primary.
No, neither am I because, primary polling is hard because it's hard to get a sufficient sample size. It's hard to figure out what the electorate is going to get to. And by the way, this is something that for those of us who are with us every week, that we keep saying to you over and over again, the polls look good, but maybe not spectacular for Democrats right now. But a lot of that is how are they modeling the electorate? When do they switch to those
Exactly.
likely voter
Exactly.
screens where they get how democratic the electorate's going to be? And I just think that they're underselling Democrats, and I agree with you that I'm not sold on Plattner. I certainly think that there's going to be a concerted establishment effort to destroy Plattner between now and June,
Agree.
and this is going to become a proxy fight. And at the end of the day, I wonder how many people there are who are concerned about Mills's age, who are concerned or who want a generational change and find Plattner somewhat refreshing, are going to hesitate because they want to win the Senate more, and they think
I
that
agree.
he's got a lot of baggage. We've seen that
I agree.
happen before in races.
I agree.
So that is something I watch. And look, someone was raising with me, arguing about this on Twitter yesterday, and saying, what happens if Mills wins and then Republicans win the governor's race either in 26 or 30. So it's not likely to happen in 26 in a wave, but it could happen in 2030. And they're worried about her age. And look,
Right.
it's not ideal. But what people have to understand is the only Democrat who you can legitimately say would have been a stronger candidate is Jared Golden. And he would have had a brutal ideological primary. And he also is a former Susan Collins staffer. He just was not going to run against his former boss.
Was
Um,
he really? I
yeah,
didn't know that actually.
yeah, he was a Collins staffer, and you've said pretty much, "I won't run against her." And the other rep in the state is Chili Pingree, who is pretty far left and is also 70, so it's not like she's, young. Their best possible candidate who is flailing in a governor's race might have been Angus
Sit with
King the
old Maine
third.
politicians.
Well, it's the oldest state in the country.
That's his son.
Um, yeah,
It is
his
the oldest state in
son
the
is
country. That is true.
his son, and there was another Pingree's daughter and Angus King's son, I think, are both in the gubernatorial primary. Um, there doesn't seem to be much bench. I think part of the problem is Maine doesn't elect their attorney generals. When you look at the springboard or where they
Yeah.
recruit people for these races, it's usually governors, attorney generals. Those are usually the places you look. But if the attorney general's not elected, then they don't really have much of a track record electorally, and there's just
Right.
not a lot of a bench there, for a blue state. You would have expected to have a much stronger bench. I wish we could export Mallory McMurrow to Maine, and then win multiple Senate races. I'd like to
Sure. Why
just
not?
move the chess pieces around the chessboard. Um,
Absolutely.
but I think that Mills is not perfect, but in a wave, I think she's good enough. And I'm just, Plattner, every time I think, maybe I'm wrong on Plattner, just more stuff comes out. And
I
you're
mean,
just
it's
like,
like it
how's,
never ends with this guy. It never ends with this guy.
yeah,
I just don't
I
see how
just,
you can. He just seems like a loser, frankly.
apparently the establishment candidates in a lot of those North Carolina state Senate and House races are getting obliterated. All these incumbents losing.
In
And
North Carolina?
on both sides of the aisle. Um,
Wow.
So it does not seem like a good night. It seems like almost all of these people, that those state reps who are down, have lost or are losing.
Interesting.
So
What's going on with Henry Cuellar, by the way? Have you heard anything on him?
I think that he is going to be fine. The race down in South Texas, the primary that is interesting, is the Bobby Polito Ava. I think it's Ava or
Oh
Ada.
yeah,
Ada is
Polito is the what's that? It's called the music. He's a musician, right?
He's a Tejano singer,
That's
and we
right.
talked about this a couple weeks ago. My favorite humble brag ever. He said that he heard about the state senate upset a few weeks ago while at a party for Grammy nominated artists the night before the Grammys. Um,
It's
so
not
he
bad.
is a very popular Tejano singer. And what was interesting about this race was Polito and Talarico endorsed each other, and Crockett and Ada Cuellar, his challenger, endorsed each other. And right now, with 62% of the vote in, Polito is winning 67.3 to 32.7. So he seems likely to be the nominee. It's interesting. It's an R plus double digits district, but we're talking about a guy conservative enough named, I think he named one of his children Remington after the arms company.
Oh
Um,
my god.
he,
Oh,
he,
good
he,
lord.
he is certainly not.
Gun nuts are so weird.
He's a gun up, but down on the border, like that sells, that plays. Um, and so I think is another sign that the establishment's going to get what they want. And again, that we should update people that North Carolina race, Valerie Foushee is up by 3.6 points with 80% of the vote in.
Sorry.
So
Yeah, I
this is
saw that.
and why this race matters so much is David Hogg's group went all in on her challenger. Bernie endorsed her challenger. This was very much an ideological proxy fight in the Democratic Party, which, by the way, shows how stupid some of this stuff is because it's literally like a liberal against someone slightly more liberal on a couple of issues. But this was a proxy fight, and the establishment held, it looks like. You
Is she going to
know,
win? Do we know? Oh, by the way, I just saw Bulwark post a thing on Twitter saying, quote from Tim Miller, who says, it's absolutely critical Democrats figure out how in the fuck to win working class white people if they ever want to have power control again. Give me a freaking break. Like, first of all, this is why you listen to the two Jews, because we know that that's ridiculous. The reality of the matter is that Democrats um, don't need to win working class white people to take back the House and the Senate. I mean, in some places
no.
it'll be helpful, but the reality of the situation is they are winning overwhelmingly in special elections. They're winning in off-year elections. They're making inroads with Hispanic voters. I mean, they are reversing any gains Trump made with Hispanic voters. Um, Sorry for saying this, but I think that is a silly argument at this point. You know how they're going to win over working class? Okay, maybe not working class white people. How they win over everybody else? By not beating Donald Trump. That is the path to political success in American politics right now. There is nobody more unpopular. By the way, let's talk about the war for a second, okay? And so this came up a conversation I had a couple days ago. So we agree that, okay, this war is not popular, okay?
No.
There's a reason Marco Rubio, slimy snail that he is, threw Israel under the bus. Slimy snail. That's this talking right here. Okay, threw Israel under the bus.
One beer and it's tough.
Such a lightweight. I'm a Jew. I don't know how to drink. Such a slimy snail. He threw Israel under the bus. Okay, and why? Because the war's unpopular, in part. Okay, so it's like 40-60, the numbers I saw a CNN poll yesterday, which is basically where Trump's approval is. So what you're getting on the war, my guess is that people who like Trump, God help them, think the war is good. And those who don't like Trump think the war is bad. And so, thanks, Ian. So what it says to me is that the war is not helping Trump at all. It's also not really helping him, but it's reinforcing what people don't like about Trump. That's what is the biggest impact politically of the war. It reminds people why they don't like him. And so I don't see this as helping him. I see it's only just reinforcing this negative death spiral for Trump's approval rating and the Republican Party in general. It's bad, is how I would say
Did
it.
you
Bad
see
for them.
Did you see the
Yeah.
CBS poll on the war today?
No. No.
It was very interesting. They worded it, how do you support the war or something like that based on the duration? And a majority
I
clearly
did see that.
supported it
I did see
so
that.
long as it's in days and weeks. And anything over that was dramatically opposed. So my feeling is I don't think this hurts Republicans hugely if it's a couple of weeks. If it's longer than that, it is devastating, especially because it's also gas prices have already gone up 11 cents a gallon. And you might have heard that Americans are not happy with how much things cost, and driving inflation and prices up,
Wait,
not a winner.
that's news. That's news to me, Brian. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, it really is, not the wisest course of things.
yeah.
And I do think that, oh, okay, so that Arkansas Supreme Court race, I've been digging around on Twitter
I
trying to
think
figure out if this
Democrat
was like,
lost. I believe.
is this it's a general election,
I think the
not
Democrat
a,
lost. Yeah.
let's see, Arkansas. It's hard to find these numbers, for these state races. Let's get, I was trying to figure out why these states are electing judges in spring primaries is nuts to me, or spring elections as
Can we just
opposed
say
to
for the
having
record
them in
that
November.
judicial
But
elections are the stupidest idea in the world.
yes,
They're just
yes,
bad. We should
yes.
never have judicial elections.
They're terrible. There's not a way to get good judges. But I think that it's even dumber when you then put it at a time when there are not a lot of other elections.
Yeah.
And you're going to get lower turnout. I mean, it may help Democrats in Wisconsin next month, and that that will cement their control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. But it's not a wise way to do things, in any way, shape, or form. And so that is a sense. I'm trying to find this race somewhere. It looks like it's 53-47 right now,
Okay.
in that race, and I got to figure out who is which is which candidate because it's a nonpartisan race, so they are
Oh
not
boy.
labeled by party.
Oh
Um,
man, it's just making it so hard for you, isn't it?
yeah, they really are, but I do think that the conservative candidate is up 53-47. But Arkansas, let's be honest, that's a win for Democrats in Arkansas at this
That's
point.
true. So this
Arkansas
is sort
has
of
just
interest.
flipped that dramatically.
This is interesting. The that North Carolina race is now narrowed. It's a 2-point margin between Fauci and Allen. And the part that is not included in the fourth district is Wake County, which was at this point +1 for Allen.
Oh, okay.
Although there's still votes remaining in a county that is, or yeah, county Chatham, which is +26 for Fauci. So do the math
So
on that. Looks like
w-
Fauci might be okay, but it's going to be real tight.
we have some evidence or some results. Hidalgo County, which I think is one of those border counties down South Texas, Talarico 66, Crockett 30. Um,
Wow, really?
which just shows you how he did down there in South Texas. Um, and again, I do think Democrats working that region of the state is very, very, very important. Oh, Texas Tribune has a lovely county by county map. And so
Oh,
that is it's 67-30 with 70% counted down there.
wow.
Um, and we don't have Starr County or Zapata County, the other two border counties down there that people talk about. But the two we have, Cameron County, he's winning by 29 points, and Hidalgo County, he's winning by 36.
Wow,
So,
interesting.
and you see the map, Crockett is doing very well on the right side of the state, that basically going over to Dallas, Fort Worth, and the entire rest of the state, with the exception of one big county that might be El Paso. I'm not good at or no, it's not El Paso. El Paso's further west. It's almost the entire rest of the state is Talarico. It's a crazy map that just goes to show how narrow her strategy was, right? That she was looking to get a lot of votes out of Dallas and Houston, and it looks like she won a couple of counties up by Amarillo a little bit,
Yeah.
one county down South Texas. But looking at this county by county, her strategy was narrow, and the results are about what you expect. That he wins by 6 or 7 points. Um, he really a candidate who doesn't try to win, or doesn't try to go everywhere, I think is hurting themselves over the long haul of a race. You should not be the last week in the campaign in a place where you're going to get crushed to try to get crushed by less. What was it? The Richard Nixon 1960 strategy where he was going to go everywhere, so he went somewhere that he wasn't going to win late in the race, or
Right.
something like that. But I think especially in a primary, that's your chance. That's your reason to go out to those places where you're not going to do well and to try to run a broad campaign. And I
Agreed.
think Tallarico did that. I think uh Tallarico's campaign was really good, and it's encouraging. And again, we can't underscore enough. James Tallarico and the Democrats may be about to be given a gift from the Republicans, and that gift is named Ken Paxton. You just
I
you
agree.
can't
I
to
agree.
get a statewide elected official who is a worse candidate is almost impossible. In fact, I'm not sure that you could draw that person up unless they were under indictment. Currently under
I
indictment,
agree.
because he
No,
was
there's
in the
no question
past.
about it. Look, here's the bottom line. We'll say it again. We do think that at the end of the day, Paxton should be merely favored. But the very fact that this race is even close, or that Republicans are going to spend a lot of money on this race, that's just a bad, bad sign for the
Well,
GOP. They don't need this aggravation.
we can let me put my two stats out there again. The last time Democrats won a Senate race in Texas was Lloyd Benson in 1988. The last time they won a governor's race was Ann Richards in 1990, and the last time a liberal Democrat won a Texas Senate race was Ralph Yarborough in 1964. Who Benson then beat in a primary.
Ralph
And
Yarborough,
yeah,
old school liberal Texas Democrat.
most famous for wrestling with Strom Thurmond, trying to get into a committee meeting to provide a quorum for something, in the
I don't think I
60s.
knew that actually.
Yeah, yeah, I was just reading
Listen,
about
I
that again.
just gonna I see we go join to ask a question. Please ask anything on this. What kind of beer you're drinking. Ask me that. Oh, this is exciting. Brian, she's
Oh, you
watching.
said,
Very exciting.
yeah,
She hates politics too. It's very exciting. Very, very exciting.
well, that is definitely saying, we haven't talked about this race at all, but Jamie Agar won his primary in North Carolina, in the 11th
Who's that?
district, out in Western North Carolina. This is the challenger to Chuck Edwards, who keeps raising a lot of money.
Oh
And
yeah,
this
yeah,
is one
right.
of those, like, maybe R plus 11 plus 12, something like that, districts. And it's a race that is going to be very interesting. The DCCC just jumped in, or has been behind Agar. Agar's a farmer who had a very impressive couple of ads that he did, like a third generation farmer. And it's the kind of race to watch in a wave where, if you win that kind of seat, you're going to have a much more comfortable majority. Let's be clear on this. Right now, I'd say somewhere north of 95% the Democrats win the House. Even that might be too conservative.
No, no, no. I'm going 99%.
Okay.
There's like zero chance it doesn't happen. I mean, seriously,
Uh,
how would it not happen? How would it not happen? I mean, right now it is like a four seat gap. No, no, two seats for Democrats would basically two or three seats, I think, would win it. There's just no way. Unless Alito
well,
comes in and like just eviscerates the VRA, and that's the
that
only way. Even then, I'm not so sure.
well, did you see his opinion yesterday in the New York district case? Um,
Yeah, I know, I know, I know.
he wrote the only opinion from the majority that the blocked redistricting, Staten Island to give Democrats another House seat, and he seemed to be saying that you cannot district based on race, which seemed to be a kind of foreshadowing his opinion in the Voting Rights Act case. Since I don't need to bore people with the mechanics of this, but essentially, the justices try to divide opinions for each one of their periods of oral arguments, each seating. And the two who hadn't handed down opinions for the fall, it was Alito and one of the other conservatives. And Alito, they kind of thought that the tea leaf watchers thought that Alito has the VRA case. So it seemed like it was a foreshadowing. That's the only way that's why I said it's well over 95%. It's just, does Alito pick them up like 6 or 8 seats somewhere where somehow the Democrats win on the low end of what they could win, and Republicans hold a very narrow majority because Sam Alito came at the 11th hour
Right.
and
Right. Right.
stole it for them.
No, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Look, Democrats win the House. I see zero chance of it not happening. We got a good question here. What would you have to see on election night to convince your Dems are winning the House and the Senate? And also, what beer you're drinking? This is a Blue Point Dark Portal. I like dark beers. So on the question, good question on the House and Senate. I mean, look, I said what I said about the House. I'm trying to think what states come in first. Would be Kentucky and Indiana. I don't know if any close races there. I doubt it. Um, but in the Senate, I mean, if North Carolina is an easy win for Roy Cooper, that's a good sign. I think Maine tends to come in late usually, so I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to say. It just depends on what. Look, I'll just say in 2018, Florida came in first. It was bad for Democrats because Florida hates Democrats, and everyone said, "Oh, this is actually a great night after all." Well, guess what? That was wrong. The Democrats won 40 seats, took back the House. It's just too early to
I,
say. Look,
I,
we don't even know some of the opponents are yet. It's so early right now, Bobby. It's a good question. I appreciate you asking, but we're just really we need to get better sense of who the candidates are, what the polling says. Um, you know, do we have close polling showing close races in Iowa or Ohio? It's just early. It's just really early to say. But look, again, this is what I keep saying. All the trend lines point in one direction, which is that people don't like Donald Trump. He's unpopular,
I,
right? The generic ballot shows Democrats are favored. I mean, just you can't ignore the evidence that. And look at tonight. Like you had more Democratic voters on the Democratic primary side in Texas than you had Republican voters. You're seeing Hispanic turnout, huge numbers. You've already seen some evidence already of Hispanics really turning against the GOP. You saw this in New Jersey in the off-year election, right? The places where Democrats did the best and they overperformed the most were in Hispanic districts. So I just think that's kind of where you're seeing the trend lines going. And look, we'll see what happens between now and we got 8 months to go. But again, all the trend lines do point in one direction.
I think that I will be looking, first of all, do Democrats pull any upsets in Florida? Because it's possible the Republicans could dummy mander Florida on themselves.
Question: Are Florida Republicans going to redistrict?
Supposedly next month in April, they
You,
are going to have a special session.
you
They
think it's going to
DeSantis,
happen?
I kind of think, yeah, because DeSantis wants to position himself to be president desperately. And so he's got to show that he's Mr. Maximalist Republican. And if he pulls his punches and blinks, that's going to hurt him with the hardest core primary voters and with Donald Trump. So I think they try, but they might not be as aggressive as they were planning to be. So
Mhm.
that's the first thing. The other
Sure.
thing, just to give you an idea of what a data point is that we don't know. And to be clear, I'm not talking about statewide Florida. I'm talking about House races, where
Yeah, yeah,
depending
house
on how
races.
those seats end up, you could see some competitive races. But here's the point we don't know. Virginia closes early, but does the referendum pass? Does the state supreme court allow them to redraw? Because otherwise, there are races I
Well,
think that could be
that referendum is going to be what in March or April or
end
something
of
or
April.
sometime
And
end
end
of
of
April.
April. But
Thank you.
what
End
I'm
of
saying
April.
that right now we can't project what we would see on election night because we don't know what the districts are going to be like in Virginia. Are there going to be competitive
Fair.
races or not?
Fair.
But the other thing that I'm looking for, the thing that I always kind of look to is who do the parties start to triage? Are Republicans still trying in the North Carolina
Yeah.
Senate race 2 or 3 weeks out, or have they conceded? It's not always a foolproof strategy. The Republicans abandoned Ron Johnson in the fall of 2016, and like Lazarus, he won't ever go away. Politically, despite being a total and complete crackpot. But
The worst.
if they start triaging races, if you start to see the majority party triaging races in October, that's a pretty good sign of things. And I will be looking at Republican polling, specifically what we're hearing about Republican internals in the Senate races. The other thing is the governor's races are really unformed right now, and I'm going to be looking to some of that to see, as a marker in places like Iowa and Georgia, are Democrats gaining governorships? Um, so that's something that I will be looking for even before election day. You,
Thanks.
you have a fan club.
Uh, yeah, yeah, I have a fan. Okay, so I see an interesting quote here from Ruben Gallego who says, this is interesting. He says, I guess he was getting asked about his support for Plattner. He said, I also endorsed Haley Stevens and Angie Craig, and I was accused by the left of being in the pocket of Israel. I'm picking people that I know can actually win the general election. I mean, that's your argument? That's why you endorse Plattner, because he thinks he can win the general election?
Well, I'm telling you,
Really?
I really think, yeah. So okay, so let me spin a theory out for you. Take what I thought with what you informed me of tonight.
Bring it on.
I think Rebecca Katz shared some internal polling with Ruben Gallego, convinced him that Plattner is going to win and be a senator, and Gallego wants Senator Plattner's endorsement in a future presidential primary, whether that's 2028 or beyond. And that's what's going on there.
Can I just
That's
say
my
for the
theory.
record, I think Gallego's decision makes me really question his political chops, because there was no reason this early to jump on the Plattner train. None. You do
He's the
not know what
third
else he was going.
senator for Plattner, I think.
Okay,
Um,
but who are the other two? One of them is the guy from New Mexico, right?
yeah, Martin Heinrichs. That was one,
It's
and
two.
was
It's Heinrich and Sanders.
yeah, Bernie. Yeah.
Sanders,
So yeah,
wasn't he?
yeah, those
You're
are the
getting a little
three.
breakup here, Bernie. Okay, neither one of those guys are running for president in 2028. Gallego's running for president in 2028. I mean, I can predict that because of the fact that he endorsed
Yeah. I think
Plattner.
that's a sign that
I
he's
think
probably running.
that this endorsement, A, so early, and B, right after these stories broke about, you know, um, Plattner's anti-Semitism problem. I'm just questions political judgment. I'm sorry. Like, I don't understand why you would do that. I mean, and I think also, if you're Gallego, like, who does this help you with? The dirtbag left? It's not going to help you with Jew. It's going to hurt you with Jewish voters. It's going to hurt you with Jewish donors, by the way, more than even Jewish voters. I just think it's really not a smart play. There's no upside to it. And I suddenly get roped in by this Rebecca Katz woman to go along with this. And I frankly just don't get it. I think it's a bad political move. I
Yeah.
Look, if Plattner wins, I guess maybe it looks good for him. But I mean, there's a much better chance, it seems to me, that Plattner, A, loses the primary, or B, loses the general. And then if he loses the general, Kagan looks like a schmuck. So I don't like it. I don't get it at all.
No,
Again,
I think
I
it's a
don't get. I
very
don't
high
like it.
risk move.
And look, if
Um,
the goal here is to win over a bunch of like online lefties, like that's what your goal is. Like Harris, I don't, I don't care. Ian. I don't care. I don't care what the polls say. I mean, the polls is first of all, some of the polls happened early. The one poll that had him up by 30 or 40 points was a shit poll that had like very few conservative voters, very few older voters. But I think also just I, I, it's too early to be trusting these polls. It's too early, and it's too early in the campaign. Mills hasn't even run a negative campaign against him yet, so I'm very skeptical. Brian, vamp for a second.
I agree. One thing that we should point out to you, and this is the first competitive election night, big competitive election night of the election year, is we are getting another indication or reminder, I would call it, that we count ballots incredibly slowly. Most of Texas has been closed for 2.5 hours,
Oh yeah, it's
and
true. It's
there
ridiculous.
is like there's 57% of the vote in, which is very much crazy, and a reminder that these things are slow. Another interesting thing that jumps out at me, as of right now, 57% of the vote in. There have been 1.467 million votes in the Democratic primary and 1.337 million votes in, or 338 now. They just updated in the Republican primary. So that is like almost what, 80,000? No, 130,000 additional votes in the Democratic primary, and that number is probably going to grow as the night goes. So that's not a great sign for the Republicans either in terms of competitiveness. The Democrats are more enthusiastic. The Republicans are about to rip themselves apart for 2 months, and then
Isn't
end
it
up with
3 months? I think it's three
well,
months actually.
it's sometime in May. I don't know when in May though, so it could be closer to 3 months easily. Um, but yeah, I don't. I I I actually think that's going to be a much more
I
competitive
mean,
race.
I gotta interject a second here. In the North Carolina 4th Congressional District, Fauci, that's her name? Fauci. She's
Yeah,
up by
Valerie Fauci.
1.3 points, less than 2,000 votes with 90% of the votes in. Oof, this is tight as a tick in here. I'm not sure how this is gonna play itself out. This is very, very close
Yeah,
race. Fauci
very
could
close
still
race.
lose.
And that state Senate president race there is apparently down to 0.6 of a point, like 300 votes.
Okay.
Um, now here's something I saw that will tell you something about the state of the Texas Senate race. Hugh Hewitt, who is the most partisan of commentators you will ever find, conservative talk show
Yes,
host,
yes,
said,
yes.
and John Cornyn needs to win because one, he's a great senator, two, he's a strong supporter of POTUS, and three, a layup win in a must-win race. A.G. Paxton could lose this seat and with it the Senate GOP majority. If the majority is lost, not one Trump nominee for the bench, much less a SCOTUS nominee, will advance to the floor, and President Trump will be fighting off both chambers for 2 years. Be smart, Texas Republicans. So when somebody like that is saying, hey, this
Well,
guy,
as Hugh Hewitt goes, so goes the nation. I think as the old statement goes.
eh, I
You
interviewed him
like that one?
once for my book.
Oh
Interesting
yeah, your book
guy, but
on the radio, right? On the
yeah,
talk radio. Yeah,
conservative
yeah,
talk radio, Talk Radio's America, and so I interviewed,
yeah.
guys like that, and he is an unabashed partisan. But when somebody like that is saying, "Hey guys, you may not want to nominate Paxton," talk radio hosts are not exactly the establishment,
That's true.
and it's a sign that Ken Paxton is a problem. Um, just a real problem. Polito has won
Can,
that
can,
South Texas race, by the way.
can I go back? Oh, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Polito has won the South Texas race. That's I see some.
The Tejano
Yeah,
singer.
yeah. The
I
Tejano
want to go
singer.
back. I want to go back a second to something brought up in the beginning of our conversation. I think is really worth talking about. There was a lot of talk a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago or longer, that Democrats were going to have a Tea Party like effect. That people were pissed off about the how old people were and Democratic Party, and they wanted change and so forth. And what you're seeing in these elections so far is that the establishment's doing okay, right? I mean, this is
Well,
early, granted, but Tallarico was the establishment candidate, and he is going to prevail. And on the flip side, right, the establishment maybe they get Cohen over the finish line, but I don't know. It doesn't look
well,
as clear that's going to happen.
what's really interesting about the Texas race is Tallarico was the clear choice, but the way that was expressed was senators anonymously telling reporters that they were for Tallarico, that Tallarico was, that they wouldn't come out and publicly endorse him because they didn't want to upset Jasmine Crockett and her supporters, but that they thought he had a
Yeah,
much better chance of winning. It wasn't even an endorsement. That's why that Fauci race to me is interesting because this is the first race where you had the establishment and the insurgency, I guess you would call it, actually facing off, and it's in a place in the Research Triangle in Raleigh, Durham, that is as blue as it gets. And look, Fauci could easily lose this race. She's up by that's 1,500 votes with 90% in, but
yeah,
the fact that she's still ahead and is led all night is at least a sign that this is not some sort of big insurgency. Like Dan Crenshaw is already done. He got crushed by
yeah.
the
But he
Club
but
for
he ran,
Growth.
he
And
did run against it. He did run against an incumbent though, didn't he?
well, no, Crenshaw was the incumbent. It was Steve
Wasn't
Todd.
Toth
Was
also an incumbent?
No, he's a
He wasn't
state
an incumbent
representative.
also.
He was a state
Ah, state
representative.
representative. Okay, my bad.
State representative,
My
and
bad.
this was the classic Ted Cruz Club for Growth type people. The Club for Growth is bragging and dunking on Dan Crenshaw's political corpse at the moment.
Didn't he?
But
Why did Ted Cruz go after him? By the way.
I I did not read the stories on the feud today, but I think it's a personal thing. I think they don't like each other.
Oh,
And it
interesting.
was something like that. I don't know, or maybe, yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but it was definitely a Cruz. Cruz and the Club for Growth is bragging they spent a couple $100,000 trying to take him out. But my point there was that race is already over, right? And
Yeah, it's already over.
Fauci is
It's true.
Fauci is still ahead, and now the New York Times has dropped back from 90% in to 89% in. But still, with most of the vote in, she's
I
still
see that.
ahead. And so I look at that and say that it's a sign that the Democratic establishment is going to prove to be stronger than people think. There are going to be places where
That's what I'm
we get
saying. That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, you're going to hear, let us forewarn you, you're going to hear some very stupid punditry over the course of the spring and summer of people saying, look, the Democratic Party is moving to the left. Look at this representative loss. And the actual answer was that person was old. And the kind of aftershocks of Joe Biden hanging on too long in the eyes of many
Yeah,
voters is
yeah,
that they're now
exactly.
Democrats, much more so than Republicans, are looking at their older members and saying, all right, you've got to go before we have a problem. Now, it's interesting. Republicans have no problem with Hal Rogers and Virginia Fox and all of these, people well into their 80s in their caucus, but the Democratic voters want none of that. And so you will see those races, but don't let people tell you that that's about ideology when it's actually about age. And you know that the
Right,
people be like, oh, the insurgency, the Democratic Tea Party, but this Fauci race is a decent barometer, and it says that look that some of these incumbents are going to have fights on their hands, but at least so far she's holding on. Although again, I think the polls close there at like 7 o'clock, almost 4 hours. Like, what are you doing? Count that this can't be that hard. No, no. To be fair to North Carolina, look, you are not California. You are not going to take a month to count. Thank God the House will not
right.
come down to that again because they count ridiculously slow. Um, but we're really bad at this. I mean, I ran a polling place for
Not
four
good.
years. I know what this is like, and it is just not something that we're very good at. We're very, very slow at getting results, and that's especially true in the big cities. But it's a problem. And by the way, other thing to watch with the Texas Senate race is there's now going to be a full court press to get Trump in, and I would think if he's going to endorse, it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
Um, if it doesn't, then that's a sign that he really doesn't think he can pull Cornyn over the finish line. Um, and
I I don't think he's going to endorse. That's my prediction. I don't think he's going to endorse.
I tend to agree with that. I think if he was going to do that, he would have done it already. And I think
Agreed.
that I think he doesn't think Cornyn can win under any circumstances, and also that realistically Paxton has been the Trumpiest of Trump supporters.
I
Um,
don't. If he
but
endorses, my honest opinion is he endorses Paxton. But I don't think he endorsed anybody.
that would be a very bad day at the National Republican Senate Campaign Committee or committee.
Actually, I take that back. He's not going to endorse Paxton. He's not going to endorse anybody. If he might, but I'd
Yeah,
be surprised if he endorsed anybody.
yeah, or he'll give one of those, oh, they're both great dual endorsement things that he occasionally does. My favorite was that time he's like, vote Eric in the Missouri Senate race, even though the two leading candidates were both named Eric.
We're
Uh,
named Eric.
yeah, he,
That was
he
Eric
was like,
Greitens, I believe.
it was Greitens and Eric Schmidt, the current senator who won that primary. Um,
By the way,
but
here's a crazy, crazy out result tonight in the Attorney General's race in Texas. Chip Roy is at 29.7% of the vote. He is 12 points behind for the AG, and it's kind of going to go to a runoff. But man, that is ugly. That is ugly. If you're Chip Roy, he gave a
it,
congressional seat to be Attorney General.
yeah, that is a race I've been wondering whether Democrats have a chance in because I tend to think that look, Ken Paxton could lose because Ken Paxton is terrible. But generally, when you see states start to become competitive, it's those down ballot statewide races that swing first. And I've
Yeah,
been wondering about Chip Roy, whether Chip Roy or honestly, if someone who's run to his right beats him, it's the same paradigm holds. Like whether that's a race where Democrats could run a normal person and win. It's obviously not a race I spent a lot of time paying attention to because it's a down ballot race, in a state that is not my own, but it is certainly something that I think is worth watching. Because Texas demographically, you have big growing cities, you have a significant non-white population. It's a place that at least Democrats should be competitive. Um,
Yeah.
at some point. They have a high educational attainment level, relatively speaking. So it should get competitive. While that Texas or that North Carolina state Senate race, Jacob Rabashkin labeled Phil Berger the most powerful man in North Carolina, and he is down by 172 votes at the moment with 96% reporting.
Do we know
Uh,
why he's losing?
no, I actually don't know that. I'm sort of surprised because he is literally like the Darth Vader for Democrats in North Carolina. He is responsible for the Republicans gerrymandering the state legislature horribly, gerrymandering the congressional map. He just went in and gerrymandered it
They did
again.
all of those things. Yeah.
Uh, and maybe their most audacious power grab was they gave control of the state election board to the state auditor last December because the
Right.
state auditor was the only office
Is
the
a Republican.
Republicans won. They lost
I
all
want
the
to just,
others.
I
I
want to make my
mean,
point about North Carolina that nobody talks about enough. It is true that Donald Trump won North Carolina and he won all three elections, 2016, 20, and 24. But in 24, Democrats won governorship, lieutenant governor, attorney general, I state Supreme Court, and I believe
yes,
Secretary of State.
it took 8 months
They won,
to get a state Supreme Court result, but they won.
granted. But I bring this up just to say that people think of North Carolina as being, you know, reddish state, and it is in these presidential elections. But if you look, and this also makes my point. I always say this point that like 2024 was a better year for Democrats. People realize, and North Carolina is a good example of that. And the reason why Democrats performed so badly at the presidential level is because Donald Trump brings out occasional Trump voters, and also Americans don't want to elect a female president. So, North Carolina is a great example of what happened in 24, and that Democrats did quite well there down ballot. They won big in a lot of these races, a lot of these big, close statewide races, which is what makes me really confident that in saying that I think Democrats have a really good chance of winning the Senate seat. I know this has been the white whale for Democrats for a long time to win a Senate seat in North Carolina, but I mean they've won before. John Edwards was there, and what's her name? Kay Hagan was a senator from there. But I think I think North Carolina is politically people realize, and I make from swing states all the time. Look at 2024. Democrats won 4 out of 5 swing state Senate races in 2024, right? Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada. They do well when Trump's not on the ballot, and he won't be on the ballot this cycle.
Yeah, I really do. We can't stress that enough. The fundamentals of this election are just not good for Republicans. We're 8 months out. You're not gonna have the kind of wow that you're not gonna get the kind of wow polls that we've gotten in past waves. I think back to polls showing Rick Santorum and Mike DeWine, two-term senators down by double digits in
Right.
2006, where Republicans wrote off like 3 Senate seats long before election day. I think we're too polarized for that. But at the end of the day, the fundamentals are really bad for Republicans right now.
Yeah, they're
They're
really bad.
just not in good shape. Um, Jasmine Crockett has refused to concede thus far.
I saw that.
Uh, f- you know,
Also,
uh,
I don't know if you saw. This is fascinating. Cornyn said Paxton is a flawed, self-centered, and shameless candidate. Promises runoff voters will learn more about Paxton's indefensible personal behavior and failures in office. Man, the champagne corks are popping at the DNC over that comment. Holy shit.
yeah, I
That's
mean, again, these Corden literally admitted to Jonathan Martin of Politico last week. He did his cover story on Cornyn. And he basically was like, I'm running because I hate Ken Paxton and he's unfit for office. These two people hate each other, and it is going to
hate
be
each
an
other.
ugly, ugly, ugly runoff. Where James Tallarico spends 2 months, 3 months raising money, going around the state barnstorming as they tear each other apart from limb to limb.
I mean, a flawed, self-centered, and shameless candidate indefensible personal behavior and failures in office. Wait, did I read the last part? Judgment Day is coming for Ken Paxton. Judgment Day is coming for Ken Paxton. Oh
Man,
my God.
and again, when we talk
They're
about
going to
Ken
fight,
Paxton,
fight.
his defense last week, the ad that he put up to defend himself was his daughter and her husband, talking about like showed him FaceTiming his
Oh
grandkids.
my God. His
He is
daughter. By the way,
that
he said his daughter goes, Ken Paxton loves the Constitution, God, and Texas. And I was like, he also loves the lovely ladies, doesn't he? Because he's cheating on his wife repeatedly. I
I
mean,
mean,
seriously. And so he asking his daughter to go on TV and vouch for this scumbag. I mean, Jesus. Oh God.
and one thing that is notable is I believe Chris LaCivita and Tony Fabrizio are working for Cornyn. Those are the key strategists for Trump.
Wow.
And Lassi Vita seems like a just terrible human being. He's
Yeah, he
always
really does.
saying nasty things to people. He was responsible for the Swift boat veterans. So if you want somebody to run an ugly campaign, that is your
He's your
guy.
man.
Yeah,
He's your
and
guy. He's your guy.
he's going to go down in the gutter here. And I really, you know, I think that it's a problem. Okay, so here's Adam Carlson did a nice, useful thread here. These are big majority Latino counties so far in Texas. Talarico is up in Hidalgo by 36, Webb, which is Laredo, by 34, Cameron, which is down the Rio Grande Valley, 29, El Paso, 26,
Wow.
Nueces, which is Corporate Christi, 25, and Bexar, which is San Antonio, by 15. He absolutely trounced her in big majority Latino counties. And again, her understanding of Texas politics needs to be called into question with the campaign that she ran. She didn't really court Hispanics in anywhere near the ways that she needed to. She never apologized for her past
Exactly.
comments.
Exactly.
And she seemed to focus almost entirely on the Dallas, Houston kinda area, and I can't believe you're looking at the state that he won just about everywhere. Like, everywhere west of Dallas and Fort Worth, which in a huge state like Texas is an awful lot of territory. Um, and I think that and again, we can't underscore enough that this is someone who in a state Democrats haven't won a Senate race in since 1988, uh, sat there and said, "Look, we can't win by appealing to white voters and Republican voters. We've done that. We've tried that. It doesn't work. We have to pull people out who aren't voting, which is just absolutely bonkers in a red state. Like, what do you think that there's like an
Such a
extra?
stupid
Are there a half million
such a
Democrats
bad
that we hid away somewhere that we can pull out?
such a stupid campaign. Such a stupid campaign,
I
honestly.
just
Like, really
I
just a
don't get it.
stupid campaign.
I
I get it.
really,
Like,
really, really
she had no other path to victory.
no. I mean, again, I don't understand why she ran. I really don't. I
She got
mean,
conned into running. She didn't seem to have a heart into the race. She didn't have a ground game. She get started too late, and she lost, and no one should be surprised by it. I'm sorry, she wasn't a good candidate. Like, what's up? Was she Wallace line? Ball don't lie, and the polls don't lie. Like, you're a bad candidate. Generally speaking, you're going to lose, and she was a bad candidate. I mean, look, she's good. She's a good congresswoman. Actually, she's a good person to be in the House. She's like a partisan. She's good in congressional hearings. Like, she's got the like sort of rapier, like slashing style of politics that works for a House member. Doesn't work for a senator. Does not work for a senator.
especially not a senator in a state that is your party is the minority party. I mean, she could be a senator from Massachusetts. She could be a
She wouldn't win
senator.
there either.
Okay, fair, fair.
You
I
think
mean,
Ayanna Presley? You think Ayanna Presley's not anywhere near as not she's not she's a squad member. She's not like Crockett, but she wouldn't win a Senate primary. She didn't even
oh,
run. She's not even taking no. I mean,
that reminds me
she
of
might run
a
actually. She might run.
well, she just endorsed Ed Markey, I believe, but
Did
that
she endorse Markey? Did she
yeah,
endorse Markey? I didn't know that.
yeah.
Really?
I
Wow.
think I read that yesterday because Ed Markey's been in the news this week because there are only 2 members of Congress who were in elected office when the Iranian regime came into power in
Wow.
1979. Ed Markey and, Chuck Grassley, and they're both still there all of these decades later. So, I happened to be reading something about Ed Markey and noticed that. But, yeah,
Wow. That's
I
interesting.
just you're right. Firebrands in the Senate, like, they only win in like a Ted Cruz. Why did Ted Cruz win? Ted Cruz won because Texas has runoffs, and he went to a runoff with David Dubas,
No,
the lieutenant governor.
he won because of the Tea Party. He was a Tea Party guy.
He was a Tea
Dewhurst was
Party
to the
guy, but
establishment.
right. But what I'm saying is it happened partly because you had a runoff, because it was a runoff state where you had a
Fair.
smaller electorate. Like, you're not seeing regular primaries. You don't see as many firebrands win unless it's a really safe state. Unless it's a state, some of these states are so safe that the candidates compete to see who can be more of a firebrand. Um, but I think that, the Senate, if you end up getting more moderate candidates, even if that's a marginally so, than you have in the House. And um, I think that it just really is one of those situations in which I don't know exactly what Crockett was thinking. I can only think that she was playing for a media gig. She thought, "Why not? There's nothing to lose. The House is a miserable place to be. You
Maybe.
run every 2
Maybe.
years. Texas is not like Virginia. It's a significant flight every week, back and forth." And she maybe got tired of the House already. Uh but I don't really, get it, and I think that all in all, given how weak the Democratic bench is, Talarico is about as strong a candidate as they could have in this race, and Paxton is the weakest possible nominee that they could face. It's no guarantee
Fa
in a state like
no,
Texas,
by the way,
but
Fauci yeah. Today,
she just
Fauci has
widened.
extended her lead slightly by a couple hundred votes. She's at 1.6 point lead over there
It,
is in what's her name? Alum,
uh,
who and there is or
Alum.
Alum. There is no runoff election in North Carolina.
No, it's about it looks like 1,840 votes, if I'm doing my math right in my head, separating them at this point, but that may go to a recount or, depending on what's still out
It's
there.
not close
No,
enough yet.
no one has called that race, certainly. So we don't have numbers.
By the way, just for the record, like, okay, so I love this thing. Wesley Hunt, who was like, it was sort of polling okay for a while. He's at 12 point in the excuse me, in the Texas Senate race. Yeah, Wesley Hunt was the third candidate. He's at 12.9%. So his presence in the race is what ensured that's going to be a runoff. How much do Texas Republicans friggin' hate Wesley Hunt right about now? That he pushed him
Well,
into a 3 month
uh,
knife gun
first of
fight between
all,
the
they
two guys.
They tried to keep him out. Then, because he's running, he's missed a ton of House votes, which has pissed them off.
Right.
And
Right.
in his, concession tonight, he apparently said that Paxton will win the runoff and that he himself will run for office again, though he didn't say what office. And he is a very, very ambitious guy, but 12.9% is pretty embarrassing given that Republicans don't like John
Right.
Cornyn and Ken Paxton has all kinds of scars. Now, granted, a lot of money was spent destroying Wesley Hunt in this race because the
Yeah.
Cornyn people correctly deduced that they need to get him out, or at least make him unelectable. But
Right.
he, all he's done is guarantee a runoff here. Now, I do think Paxton will eventually overtake Cornyn as we count tonight, but that doesn't seem guaranteed. Cornyn's up by 2.2 points at the moment. And again, there's only 62% in 3 hours after most of the polls closed. So we're getting information. There's some of these counties haven't reported a single ballot
That's
yet,
crazy. Isn't that
which
crazy?
is absolutely nuts. After 3.5 hours, like, are you just waiting and report it all at once? And if so, how long do you take? But yeah, there's only 62% in. in that race. No, we just got more. Fauci just her lead went down by 2/10 of a point. She's now up by that's 1,700 votes, I think, if I'm doing the math right, thereabouts. And there's 94% in. So we're getting closer and closer to final results, and she has been ahead the whole way. That doesn't guarantee anything. There was that Colorado House race, Colorado 8, where the Democratic incumbent representative Yadira Caraballo was up until like the Friday after the election and then lost
Right.
last cycle. So it's not a guarantee, but generally speaking, when one candidate has led all night long, as we get result after result after result, that's a decent sign for them. Um,
I'm actually
uh,
really interested in seeing how the prediction markets have this Fauci race right now. They have her 86% for Fauci. No, 97% to win.
by the way, here's the funny thing, or funny possibility. Okay, well, first of all, we've got to break off here for a second because that state senate primary in North Carolina. You're not gonna believe this, Michael. Right now, Sam Page, the challenger, has 13,077 votes, and Phil Berger, the incumbent, has 13,075 votes.
Oh my
They are
god.
currently separated by two votes. Um,
Oh my god.
now
Oh my god.
Republicans, you spent all your time talking about voter fraud, and let me tell you, this is a race where fraud might have impacted the result if it's decided by two votes. That
Wow.
is a small enough
Wow.
margin. That is a
That's crazy.
crazy number. Really crazy. But what was I even saying? God, I was going to make a good point too, and I got distracted by that.
It's okay. It's
But
11 o'clock at night. It's a little
it
late here.
happens. But yeah, I think that it's very a very very interesting set of results here that we're getting, and generally I think Democrats have to be pretty happy right now with what they're getting out of things. Oh, I know what the point I was going to say. I was
No, no,
going to
no.
talk about
No, no. They shouldn't be happy. They should be over enjoyed. This was a
yeah.
great night for Democrats.
Well, I'm gonna throw another theory out here because it's late and we can, where they might get something else. So Dan Crenshaw just lost the primary. Now, if I were Dan Crenshaw, I would just resign. Say screw you, Republican
Right?
Party. If I lost a primary, I'm just gonna go home now. I'll go make money now. I've lost already. That's a risk when you have a guy who loses a primary like that. That he just up and packs up and leaves, and with that, there goes Mike Johnson's majority
Yeah, exactly.
with each guy. But it really, if you're looking for it, Sarah Ferris of CNN did a deep dive into Dan Crenshaw's rivalry with MAGA World, including Ted Cruz and how it worked against him. He apparently doesn't tell people what they want to hear, according to a source close to him. Um, but yeah, he is gone. It looks like, or will be gone. Um, Apparently, the DSCC has released a new digital ad called Clown Car, in which the narrator says the Texas Republican clown car just lost one of its passengers, but the two that are left could make up the whole circus.
Any chance that Crenshaw drops out and that he retires?
Well,
Resigns his seat?
that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that guy, his ego took a big hit tonight, and it's not unheard of for somebody to lose a primary and be like, "All right, I'm done," or at least just not to show up, for weeks on end. So I would imagine that he's getting a
So
lot of calls from the Republican leadership tonight being like, "Please stay. We need you. Please,
so
please."
according to VoteHub, Philberger is lost
Okay.
by 2
Um,
points.
well, we have the North Carolina Secretary of State, or I guess that would be who has the results. If they hijack the election board, let's see if we can get official results to see where the official results are. Um, and see if we can get that. But that Phil Berger race, that is gonna be fascinating. And let's see the election results dashboard. 3326 office NC Senate display results. Let us find Phil Berger here. Um, right now the state does have this as a two vote race,
Un
13,077 to
Unbelievable.
13,075. So that is an official result with with 48 precincts out of 48 reporting. So
Unbelievable.
I mean, we're headed to
Unbelievable.
recount. We're headed to are there overseas military ballots? That is just an insane result to
I'll tell you right
be.
now, I'm telling you, who's lighting up a fatty tonight is Josh Stein in the North Carolina governor's mansion. He is
Yeah,
having an evening.
his Democratic antagonists are gone. His Republican antagonists may lose by the most agonizing of margins that you could possibly lose by. I mean,
Well, no, one vote would be the most agonizing way to lose, but 2 votes is pretty close, obviously.
yeah, I call this getting Al Gored.
Oh, man, that's harsh.
It-
That's harsh. No, but Al Gore, don't
I
forget he won the, popular vote.
Well, the thing with
Alright.
Al Gore that was probably killer for him on a personal level was all of those old Jews who didn't mean to vote for Pat Buchanan, like, knowing
Oh,
that the majority tried to vote for him. Uh,
it's so shocking. It's so upsetting. Yeah. Alright,
but
listen, it's 11:08 and
yeah.
I is nearing my bedtime, so I think we gotta call this one. I don't know if we're gonna be able to go out, to do this again this week, probably just gonna push it off to next week, because this was a long time.
Hey, I'll just point out Emma Vigeland, who is a Majority FM co-host, one of the pretty far left folks who was rooting for Nita Alum, says she's gaining, but probably not by the margins that she needs to win. So that's one of her own supporters saying that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
that
not good.
picture you just retweeted of Sean Trenny with the car coming out
Yeah, yeah, you like that
of the
one?
building. Um, but yeah, that's the that's the state of the GOP in Texas. It has been for a while.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's not good.
um, yeah, so we will update you. It's if not this week, then next on these North Carolina results, and then we're headed to the Illinois primary in 2 weeks. Is the next election day, and I think the next really meaningful election will be the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race in April.
Yeah, that's an actual
First week in
general election,
April.
so
Yeah,
that'll be
that's a
exciting.
general election, and it will be exciting. It will be another sign of where swing state is. And remind me next week we should talk about that Steve Shale polling that from the North Florida district. Um, that was positive for Democrats. We and I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll get more polling between now and then. But yeah, it was an interesting election night.
Yeah, it's a very interesting election night. It's a good night for Democrats. And I think that if you're a Democrat right now, the prospect of a Paxton Cornyn runoff and the potential for a Paxton Talladega general election is is, you know, it's a good sign for Democrats. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, let's be clear about so let's pull the lens back as we finish up here. You have a situation in which you've got 6 competitive Senate races. So far, as of tonight, Democrats have gotten their candidates in 2 of the 6, in North Carolina and in Texas. And they seem more likely than not to get the Republican candidate that they won in Texas. Every time they
right.
get their candidate end up with the weakest possible Republican, that's a good thing for Democrats.
Yeah.
And Mary Patola has no opposition, so it's just Iowa, Maine, and Ohio, and Brown doesn't have an opposition. So in 4 of
Well,
the
we'll see
6,
if
they're going to have their candidate
yeah.
through the
And we
primary.
still have to see about Sharice Davids in Kansas.
Yeah, although I heard that today, I think it was Punchbowl saying that she's apparently one of the Democrats on the fence on the War Powers Act vote, and the base is not gonna take kindly to that. Um, I don't know if that's actually true, if it's gonna happen, but it would be a problem for her with base voters.
We'll see. We'll see. All right. I gotta call it.
It will call their subscribe to Truth and Consequences, subscribe to The World
Subscribe to the
According to
world according
Brian.
to Brian.
Yep,
Thank you for
yeah, yeah,
joining us, guys.
yeah,
Sticking
and
it through
we
it for
will do
2
this again.
hours.
We'll do this again. Um, and who knows what we'll come up with. I mean, we just went 2 hours. You project that out to the 6 or 7 hour election night show that we're gonna do. Who knows what we'll be saying in the middle of the night?
It's gonna be a late night.
Except you won't be drinking that, you'll be drinking champagne.
We'll see. We will see. One hopes so. All right,
Yeah,
my
that's the
friend.
hope.
See you
All
later.
right.
Thanks everyone for
Take
joining
care.
us. We'll see you next week. Hang in there, guys. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.